Hello and welcome back to Tiny Artist TV. Today we are doing the second video in our Black History Month series. So last week we did our writer, which was Jupiter Hammond, and this week we're going to be doing our musician. And then of course the next week we'll be doing an inventor, and then the last week we're going to be doing someone who's currently still alive. So let's go ahead and get started with today's focus. When I first started doing my research for this week's person of interest and typed in Black musician, of course, I got anything from Prince and Whitney Houston, and then I scrolled down a little further and got Harlem Renaissance names like Louis Armstrong and Josephine Baker. But for this video, I wanted to dig deep and do something a little different. So, I wanted to go the classical route. Enter Florence Beatrice Price. If you're not as familiar or fluent with classical music, this may be a foreign name to you, but after the amount of research I did, and considering that I did have a stint with piano and I frequent classical music, I'm kind of curious as to why I'm just now hearing about her. Though she made her name in the music scene of Chicago, Florence Beatrice Price was born in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1887. Although she would later go on to play for WGN radio station, the U.S. Marine Band, the Michigan WPA Symphony, the Forum String Quartet, the Detroit WPA Concert Band, the Chicago Club of Women's Organists, the Illinois Federation of Music Clubs, the Brooklyn Symphony, the Bronx Symphony, the Pittsburgh Symphony, and the Chicago Chamber Orchestra and the New York Symphonic Band. Miss Price did not have an easy start to her music career. As quoted in the Women's Voices for Change in March 8, 2013, she would continue to wage an uphill battle, a battle much larger than any war that pure talent and musical skill could win. It was a battle in which the nation was embroiled, a dangerous melange of segregation, Jim Crow laws, entrenched racism and sexism. She would play her first recital at age 4, and at age 11, her first composition was published, aided by her mother, who was also her teacher because white musician teachers at the time literally refused to teach her. She graduated high school at age 14 as valedictorian and left Little Rock in 1904. She began attending the New England Conservatory under the guise of being of Mexican heritage, also again suggested by her mother. 2 years later, she earned her bachelor's with a double major in organ and piano performance. After graduation, she taught at Cotton Plant Arkadelphia Presbyterian Academy, Little Rock Shorter College, and Clark University. She eventually returned to Little Rock to focus on composition. As you might imagine, segregation was still a rampant issue. One such result was Miss Price founding the Little Rock Club of Musicians, as well as teaching at the segregated black schools after being rejected by the Arkansas Music Teachers Association. Eventually, in 1927, as tensions continued to rise, a lynching prompted Florence and family, which included her husband Thomas Price, who was an attorney, and their 2 daughters, to move to Chicago. There, Price joined the Nathaniel Dett Club of Music and the Allied Arts and did additional study at the American Conservatory of Music, Chicago Teachers College, Central YMCA College, the University of Chicago, and Chicago Musical College, and as a student in composition and orchestration with Carl Busch and Wesley LaViolette. She eventually graduated in 1934. As you can probably imagine at this point, her composition career flourished from her move to Chicago. She met a number of people who would both influence and encourage her path, and her eventual meeting Ted Stone led to her becoming the first black student at the Sibelius Institute in Helsinki. In 1928, G. Schirmer and McKinley began publishing her music, and later that year she would file for divorce from her husband Thomas Price. After the divorce, she moved in with her friend Margaret Bonds and began teaching piano lessons from home, and over the course of her lifetime, she composed over 300 works, including symphonies, piano concertos, works for violin, works for organ, spiritual compositions, and chamber works. In the midst of that, she wore several hats. I know at this point you're probably thinking, what else did this woman do? Because as my research went on, I also had the same thought. But after she had attended the Sibelius Institute in Helsinki, she returned to Chicago in 1939 to resume her career as a classical concert singer, promoter, and apparently she also worked as a journalist. Not just at one paper, but she worked as a journalist at several black-owned newspapers, including the Chicago Bee and the Associated Negro Press, which are now both defunct, the Chicago Defender, which at the time was the oldest black-owned daily newspaper, established in 1905, and later the Chicago Crusader, which is currently the oldest black-owned weekly newspaper. She died in 1953 of a stroke. She accomplished so much more than I can fit into this short video, so of course I'll post a link in the description. But as you can tell, this was one busy woman who did not let her circumstances define her successes, and discovering more about who this woman was, first off, even realizing that she existed, but then realizing that she did so much was just mind-blowing. So I hope you guys take a minute to check out her bio, go listen to her music. It's available on YouTube, it's available on Spotify. I'll post links to that as well. But in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a little something. I'll see you guys next time. Have a weird day. Happy Black History Month.